Hello and welcome to International Investor and a conversation with another award winner. This time we're joined by Simon Chrystal, the Chief Executive of WPS Advisory Limited. He has won Most Innovative Financial Advisory Chief Executive and the company has won Most Trusted Boutique Advisory. So Simon, not one but two accolades on the table in front of us there. Congratulations. But for the viewers who don't know what the company does, what purpose it serves and what solutions it provides, I'll let you explain.
We are a relatively new company because we only formed in 2015, but we provide access to support and guidance, helping people to build financial confidence and access to advice, but for regular people. Not rich people.
So regular people, it's a bit like that government debate. What is a working person? So who's the regular person? Typical demographic.
Start with the difficult questions, why don't you? They are generally relying on their next paycheck to pay the bills and if you like, just getting by.
Yeah.
Whereas they're not what you would call investors, people that are looking at it and saying, how do I make my money work harder for me? They're thinking, how can I have enough money to get by, type of thing. So
before we get to that demographic and your customer base, you're leading the team. And what is it that you remind yourself and your colleagues every day about what the company wants to achieve and the outcomes you want your clients to have?
Do the right thing. I think personally culture is massively important in a business. There's no right way to do wrong, no wrong way to do right. So it's listen to these individuals, understand them, almost instead of being an expert in a product, be an expert in that person, understand what they think, what their values are, and how you can help them to achieve their objectives in the context of those values, and give a little bit of a challenge so that they think and make informed choices.
So I'm sensing a lot of empathy there. So I'm wondering, what were your experiences, personal and corporate, that have helped you shape and define your management style?
I'm not sure you'd call it a style, but overall, I think I guess I was brought up like most people, where I was in, clearly from the accent, the northeast of England. I was the oldest of four brothers. I came through primary, secondary, comprehensive school. Like most of the individuals of my age, we came through lots of change, Thatcher era, and in the northeast, of course, we had shipyards, we had the mines, all industry that no longer really exists. Up there, it wasn't an environment where you were brought up with lots of money. You had to watch the money and things like that. There was lots of budgeting, a bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul, that sort of thing. But additionally, my father was a police officer, so it was drummed into us very early around the importance of, if you like, doing the right thing by other people. It was a community in that sense. Nobody had a lot, and so you were all part of that community and you all pitched in and looked out for each other to a degree.
And looking after the pennies as well, because what would you say to people who say, oh, I'd love to get advice from a financial advisor, but they're likely to charge unaffordable fees and they might lose me money, so therefore I'm just going to keep my cash under the mattress?
I think I would break it into two things. I think you're right as an individual to be careful with the pennies and to not pay for something that you don't value. I think when we talk about support, guidance and building financial confidence, what you want those individuals to be able to know is when they need advice. When is it critical? I have to have advice on this. Or when can I feel comfortable making that decision myself? The second element of that is, if you are not somebody who feels comfortable in investing money, then you shouldn't, right? What you're trying to do is to have your money in the right place at the right time of your life, in actual fact, to be able to do the things that you want to do. We shouldn't, as a firm, or in my view as an industry, try and change people's DNAs. We might think it's great to invest the money. We might think it's great you'll make that money work harder. But if they're spending every minute of every day worrying because that money's somewhere they don't understand, then I would argue we've not done the right thing by that person.
So earlier on you were talking about, listening to people. So I wonder, is your style is your way of business, a hybrid one. You know, you set out a framework and empower the customer to make decisions about their savings goals, or is it a collaboration?
Definitely a collaboration, and it's important that it is. Obviously, you know, it's 35 years now I've been working, and a lot of that time what you've seen and I've seen is a situation where almost you're fitting a person to a product, and you've got that product in the briefcase and you're supposed to sell it, and that's how you earn your money. I would always suggest it needed to be the other way around. You needed to become an expert in the person. A product or an investment tool or whatever that is can only be used to help them to get to somewhere that they need to, they feel they need to get to, and something that they should understand. Lots of times I see advisors overlaying their values and their knowledge, and building a plan for that person that person doesn't understand. And then when it goes wrong because they've made a decision in their own right and it disconnects the plan, then they're not sure, why did that happen? You know, is anybody at fault? So the reality for me is always, if they don't understand, they just shouldn't do it. And actually achieving that informed decision's really difficult to be able to do.
So I'm checking my notes here because there's an innovation I'm desperate to find out more about. What is Who Am I all about?
It's a very simple framework, and it's about getting people to talk in the way that they would naturally talk, and it doesn't ask you anything about money. Okay, so it's got 5 simple questions. What's your plan? What's in it for you? What might go wrong? How would you spot it? And what would you do about it? And you get a whole range of different answers to that. Some really detailed ones. You've got engineers, they'll give you spreadsheets and you can sort of say, okay, great. And then other people that it's very, very vague. And they tell you something when they give you those different forms of answer about the sort of person they are and the way they use language. And you can get some really powerful messages coming through there. So one I always remember is it was a man, and he got to the what might go wrong, and he says, nothing else can go wrong, my wife's died. Now you've got to read into that, and what you're looking at is, here's an individual who would go into the casino and put all the money on red, it falls on black, he walks out and it's not gone wrong because it's already really bad. So you're dealing with an individual in a certain stage of life that you've then got an obligation for, to try and work through that in a very gentle way. And you know, once you know how people are going to talk, and you make it about their families and things like that and their loved ones, they'll tell you a lot more than if you turn around and said, well, can you tell me what you earn, what you spend, what you save, what you owe, in that sort of sense. You get it out much more naturally, and that's about the values and you know, putting somebody at ease. You wouldn't walk into a social environment and start asking somebody what they earned, because they leave, you know, but you might turn around and say, you know, what about family and stuff like that. So it's just making that comfortable environment for that person.
So you talked about stages of life there. What about the older saver? What would you say to the I'm too old to have a plan, it's too late for me as I approach, or I'm already at retirement age?
Yeah. Everybody has plans of sorts, even if they don't verbalise them naturally or write them on a piece of paper. And that plan might well be that I just don't want the alarm clock to go off tomorrow and have to go to work. It might well be that I'm hoping I'm alive in 3 years' time. It can be there. And so what people do is they'll contextualise it. You use the word savers, right? And I would use the word consumer or person or regular person or whatever it is. And a plan doesn't have to be in 20 years' time. A plan can just be, well, in the next 12 months, I'd like to go on holiday. Whether you're 20, 50, 70, that's what I'd like to do. And I want to organise my money around that ambition for to be there. There's no judgment to an ambition. Some people have significant ambitions. Some people just want to be comfortable. And you've got to let that person be in that space for themselves. So, you know, people will often have a plan, but not verbalise it. And sometimes, because it's personal to them, they don't even verbalise it to their partners.
How personal is your Life Stage app?
Right, well, Life Stage is the thing we're about to launch, and we've been building it. And Life Stage, though it didn't have a name then, goes back to 2012 in a report done by Michael Johnson called Putting the Saver First. And, you know, it was a colleague that referred that to me and said, have a read of this. And I read it and I thought, wow. And it was really around the demographics in the UK, the ageing population. It compared the UK's progress, for example, to Japan, which had the oldest population, and the other European countries and things like that. And it identified these stages and the things like that. But one of the key things it identified was a change in the working population, not just an ageing population, but a change in the working population, and a change in the demand for human resource. So, one of the key things we did at the beginning is we went into advice via the workplace. So we don't find what are called retail clients. We do this via the workplace. And there's a stakeholder in the middle, which is a company, big or small, that provides these individuals with access to these services, often funded, so they pay for it. Now, here, what we're doing is this balance, which says, if you're going to have to work harder to have the right people in the right roles with the right skills for the right duration, you're going to need to find a way to help them. Back in my day, there was these wonderful things called final salary pension plans, and your death benefits were all there, and everything was there. And it was very much a cradle to grave society. And back in 2012, what you were seeing was a move to what we would call the age of individual responsibility. Okay, people are going to have to look after themselves unless there's an interaction somewhere. So this life stage is almost about saying, when for your more experienced people, they're likely to have to work longer. So their pathway out of work is going to be different, maybe more part-time for longer. 68% of the money that people use for retirement is not in pension schemes now, right? So most of it is their own personal assets. For the last 3 years, if we looked at our customers, almost all of them have higher value in their home than they've got in any other savings. So you've got this group here, but you're going to want to retain the experience as an employee. You're going to want to make the most of it and meet these working patterns. You've got this new generation coming into the workplace, and you need to pass that experience across to them. But if you have to compete harder for them, particularly in a higher tax environment, then you're going to have to find other ways of helping them. And life stage is really just about using technology to deliver that framework where people can see all their money in one place. So it's built on money hubs, open banking frameworks. It's got guides, if you like, retirement models, so you can see your money today, your money tomorrow, and your money in the future. It has things in there where we will allow people to it will constantly compare the deals that they've got on insurance and things like that, so they can switch and save money so it's relevant to them. But the most important aspect is really around being able to see where your money is. And before we deployed it, I'm going to say I tested it personally. What I mean is my wife tested it personally, by the way, and 70% of households in the UK, it's not the males who do the planning, and they don't know where the money is, and I'm no different to that. And what we'd found was we had every month £45 worth of expenditure, which it highlighted we shouldn't have had for different reasons. So we immediately saved £45 a month from doing that. We also learned, because we live in a very energy hungry house in the winter, if we tried to save money between October and March, it was futile, it wasn't going to happen. But we could save quite well from April to September. So we actually increased our savings rate by a factor of 2.28. Not that I'm anal about these things, just by looking at when we would be better saving money and when we broke even or maybe slightly lost money. And what that did is it took away this sense of failure that you often get. I'm going to put something in place and I'm going to save. And then something happens and actually you think, oh, failed again. So it built that kind of, we were very clear on these almost AI, artificial intelligence, if I can get the word out, budget things. It helped us budget and know where we were spending our money and things like that. And my wife's such a convert to it. If I go out and spend money, it comes through the app and she says, where have you been this time? And how much beer? So it's relevant to everyday life. And it's, like I say, it's not only about the future, it's about today. And one of my favourite aspects of it is this net worth. One number, right? Just one number. And your net worth can increase or decrease depending upon what's going on in your life at the time. But with that net worth, we can say something like, grow that by 1% in a year for the next 30 years. Don't worry about the rest of it, we can sort that. And actually you'll be okay, right? Based on what how you tell us you want to be, what you want to live, where your kids are and things like that. So it makes it simple.
All those £45 a month will certainly add up. But I'm just wondering about the regular person who's not digitally empowered. They don't have a mobile phone. Can they still pick up the phone or come and see you in person if they don't have access to that app?
They can. The cost base is different. Part of the reason why I'm really keen on the technology is value for money. You talked earlier about if I go to this financial advisor, I might lose money. But that's a secondary consideration for most people. For most people it is, don't like them, don't trust them, right? And it costs me too much, especially if they see it in pounds and pence rather than some percentage. So the key area is to almost make it a little bit frictionless. And so actually what it does is it drives down cost and makes it efficient, so that we're in a position where, don't get me wrong, it still costs money, right? But it's not like it is when you're talking about, you know, some of these charges that we're seeing in the industry that the regulator's currently reacting to. So we're determined to make sure that we represent value for money, because we're dealing with people that don't have a lot of it, you know, so we've got to be responsible in that area.
What are your aspirations? Do you see yourself as a North East of England headquartered based business with global aspirations? What's the plan?
Well, I think I'll leave global aspirations to Devere Group, who are the shareholders, so they can do the global aspirations from there. When we first set up in 2015, it was a very modern business in the sense that there was a lot of people working remotely across different parts of the country, and particularly in, you know, COVID, there was a lot of challenges for lots of companies there, and we were able to be relatively fluid. But don't get me wrong, you know, we had absence rates at about 30% for most of that. The office space we did have, we had to close 5 times on a pin drop, you know, and then you had to have it deep cleaned and things like that. So we still had the same challenges that anybody else had during that period. But as we've reflected and moved forward, I'm always minded that when I went to work, the experience of the people around me, the ability to turn around and say, have you seen this before? What would you do? That's invaluable, and I learn more from just tapping into the experience of those individuals than any script or book or anything would tell me. So as time's moved on, as in my view we've seen a reduction in the effectiveness of things like Teams and Zoom for communication purposes internally and externally, we're almost going back to that environment and now bringing more and more people into our Newcastle office. But if, you know, we wanted to have an office in, say, Leicester, we could do that. There's no issue with it. We look for skill in people and we look for passion and commitment. You know, do they have to be in Newcastle to demonstrate those things? Well, of course not.
So you mentioned you were a young business, but you've achieved so much, and this has been a transitional year. I mean, the 2 accolades demonstrate that. So have you achieved everything you wanted to achieve this year? And 2025, what are the milestones going to be?
I would turn around and say, have we achieved everything we wanted to? It's been a year of progress, but it hasn't been a year of change. We've been quite specialised in the work that we do. We've really been around that retirement space and helping people in retirement. And we did that so that we could create trust, so that people would, you know, whether it be employers or individuals, they knew we could be trusted to do the right thing. We now need to expand that out, which is what Life Stage is about. And remember, the original business plan in 2012 was always about what became called Life Stage. It wasn't even open banking then. You know, you'd have been some sort of genius to predict the existence of that, and yet it's a fundamental part of it. So now we really need to kind of be in that whole life journey, and I think we've been a little bit slow, not at our best in 2024, to bring some of these things to life. So I'm really looking forward to bringing it to life, you know, in 2025, not just in terms of concept and the fact that it works and we've got people using it. I want to see more and more people using it, and I want to see people really understanding and being able to make a decision on whether or not they need advice or not, because our job is to help them know that, rather than just always to try and take them down that route, because it works for us commercially.
So there you go, Simon. Empowerment, listening. You've achieved so much in 2024, and I'm really looking forward to catching up in 2025, when no doubt at your manic pace you'll have achieved even more. Thank you very much, Simon Chrystal, Chief Executive of WPS Advisory Limited. It has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you.